Hey, everybody, welcome to our Tuesday talks, our Tuesday lives. I am Tamika Michelle Johnson, aka the matchmaking attorney. And today we are talking about gender roles in relationships. It's going to be a good discussion, everybody. I have a friend of mine who will be joining us tonight. I've known her for 20 years, and she's going to give some good perspective on gender roles, especially as it relates to her relationship. She is a successful woman, and she's going to talk about how those gender roles have been a little challenging, how she's had to navigate it. Again, being very successful financially with her husband, and I'll talk a little bit about my past situations, my current situations, all of that. So let me bring Lori in. And if you are watching this on Instagram Live and you cannot see Lori, you can jump on YouTube Live under Platinum Connections. You guys know I'm still working all this technology out, going going live on different channels. So we're gonna work that out eventually. But yeah, you can jump on to YouTube Live and catch us there as well. So Lori, thank you for joining us tonight. This is, like I said, this is an old friend of
Oh,
mine from
glad to
20 years
be
ago.
here. Always glad to have girl talk.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a good one. So yeah, it's just very interesting. Um, I had a conversation with my daughter last night. Started off really sad. Everyone who's watching, whether it's live on replay, there's a lot of stuff that's going on just in general. I just want to get that out the way. Just in life right now, there's a lot of just negativity. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of suicide. Like just bad news
Mhm.
everywhere. And so yesterday, my daughter called me and she was upset because one of her friends, her body was found yesterday morning,
Oh,
and
wow.
she was just devastated. So I went to where she was, and I was, said I was going to spend the night with her. And then we just started talking a little bit, and she was saying she just talked to her friend. There was a group call. Just talked to her friend the night before. They were talking about having a Galentine's, for young ladies or women, who are single, what they're going to do for Valentine's Day, and just kind of celebrating it together. So she had talked to her friend the day before, and then the next day she wasn't there. But that kind of started a conversation, a dialogue between me and my daughter, as I was, asking her questions about Valentine's Day, where's she going to go? Was she not going to go? Um, and we started talking about relationships.
Oh,
So, my daughter's 19 now, and she was telling me about a situation that happened a little over a month ago around Christmas time with her dad and her brother. And I just cannot believe how antiquated our society is, how antiquated some men still really are when it comes to men and women in relationships and the roles that they play. And in that conversation, my daughter, she's 19. She has a brother by her on her dad's side who was 18, so a little over a year apart in age. And her dad took them out for Christmas, and he was talking to his son. He was like, "Hey, talk to his son. Do you have a friend or something that you like, anything like that?" And I don't know what his son said, but he said, if there's someone that you like, you be nice to them. Don't be an a-hole, be respectful, kind of like, use the protection, take your time in a
right,
relationship.
right.
Then he turned to my daughter and said, but you can't date till you're 50. And he was serious. And she was just so offended. And when she said that, I was just like, wow, it's just amazing that this mindset is still there. Like, despite the fact that we as women are successful in so many different areas, there's still this mindset of the way that things are supposed to be in relationships.
Well, he's a dad.
So he he's a dad, but the thing is, I've always said this. You probably heard me say this as well, that even as little boys are taught somewhat how to be in relationships.
Right,
They're
right,
taught to be providers, they're taught to be protectors, they're taught to, like, they're expected to engage sexually with women and to use protection and all of that. So they have an idea what their role is supposed to be in relationships. But we as
right.
girls, we don't, because we're just told not to have sex, and we're told, to keep our legs closed and to stay in school and
Right.
get good grades and all of that. Then we do all that, right? Then we're successful. But we don't know how to be in a relationship. So we're all confused.
Right.
And then
Right.
we really don't know what to do when we're successful because that hasn't been taught. We don't know how to, just on a general level, like how to be in a relationship, but to be successful. And we're taking away that provider role that so many men have had, how to navigate that. So I want to talk to you because we started talking a little bit last week.
Yeah, we
And
did.
and I was like, "Ooh, don't say too much." I was just, I wanted to go live and I really want to, delve into it. But you are, a successful woman financially. You always have been. Like I think even we know Lori and I met at a law firm before we were both attorneys. And I think Lori was making probably about the same amount as an attorney, and I was making like $400 a week or something crazy. But it's only gone up from there. So
Right. Right.
she's been successful. So in your relationship now, you're quote unquote the breadwinner. How has that, you started talking about some of the challenges that kind of presents, like you have to be more conscious of certain things. You have to maybe sometimes change the way you approach things, or maybe you're advised to. Maybe you don't change the way. If I know you, you don't change the way it's supposed to be. But tell us a little bit about the challenges that comes along with you being the breadwinner,
Right.
and your husband not. Like what kind of issues that plays or that has an impact that has on your husband, perhaps in your relationship.
Well, I think relationships are already challenging as it is. And as you think of the stereotypes of both men and women, we've come a long way. We've come a long way career wise. And I believe that a man, a Black man in particular, um, has a foundation that is set for him in his particular household. He models his behavior after his father, and so there are certain elements of strength that society has and that they're taught to be. And so, in my own relationship, despite challenges that you have in a marriage, you also have to navigate, kind of the success level. We have similar backgrounds. We have similar backgrounds. I'm an attorney, and he's done things that he's done, but I just happen to be making more money. And I think one thing that you have to do in a relationship is you have to be sensitive. You have to be sensitive to that because you have those traditional values, that traditional role where the man is supposed to be the breadwinner. So you definitely have to. I'm not a know your role woman by any stretch of the imagination. Matter of fact, I struggle with that. But you have to be sensitive to that other person and let them know that they are equally contributing. You can't come from a place of hierarchy at all as it relates to that. I don't know if that kind of answers some part of the question.
A little bit, and that's just kind of the beginning. So let's say traditional roles are going to be, for men and women. Again, let me ask this. Have you had the conversation maybe of him being perhaps intimidated by the amount of money that you make? Like, or have you sensed that in your relationship?
I think that anyone, whether or not they say it or not, especially a man, feels a certain way. He probably would never admit that at all, just because the nature of sometimes men, men and women are extremely different in their thought processes. But I can imagine that he's made comments before about different things, and I can infer kind of what the comments are as it relates to that. Ironically, I'm kind of a spender and he's extremely frugal. And so he's made comments like, well, I guess you can do that, because what you make, I'm a big DoorDash person because I work from home. And so he'll say, well, I guess you made that particular money in X amount of hours. And so you can do that, so things like that, and I don't think he means anything by it, but he's human, so he's got to recognize that, I would.
So how do you kind of reinforce that you're my husband, you're my man, you're the okay, I don't know, is he the head of the household? First we have to define that.
I would like to think that we are partners. We've gotten
Okay.
into this debate about the whole Bible thing and the man's role and the woman's role. And sometimes I like to throw that all out the door because I believe that we are equals and equal partnership. Like I said, marriage comes with a whole set of challenges, and when you are married, you have to recognize different roles. I'm not there yet, and that might be another conversation that we have. So I struggle in that area. So to be quite honest with you, to bring it back to your question, I haven't always been sensitive to that, because I've looked at it as what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. And I don't equate money to smart because he's extremely smart. He blows me away in Jeopardy. I just happen to follow, a certain path in terms of my life, law school and whatever, which, that comes with a certain amount of monetary compensation and reward. So I really haven't been as sensitive to that. It's just now, what are we like in our third year? And I'm starting to realize that maybe some of those comments add up and I need to be more sensitive to that. And then when I was talking to you just last week, I was like, oh, wow. If you don't talk about it, you don't realize that it's an issue. So.
Yeah. So how do you kind of comfort him in a situation? Like how do you kind of like instill like, okay, yeah, baby, like you are like we're equal. Like how do you do that if you're feeling like he's feeling some kind of way or he's insecure because he's not bringing as much money to the table? Is
I
there
think
anything
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
is there anything that you do in particular or do you respond at that point?
Well, I think in the beginning, I had a bad habit of saying my money, my bank account, not even really thinking, what that might be. And one time, I think it probably caused issues in the relationship. And then one time he just sat me down. He's like, it really bothers me when you blah, blah, blah. That's one thing that I can really count on him to really kind of express himself and really kind of lay it down on the table. So I think your question was, what do I do?
Yeah,
Um,
to kind of reinforce or to make him feel secure in the relationship and that, this is not a huge deal for you.
I think what I try to do, and like I said, I haven't always been sensitive to this. So I'm kind of glad that we're having this conversation as women because I think this is an area that I am challenging. So I welcome any constructive feedback, but I've had to tell him that I don't look at you in terms of money. That's not why I married you. I also believe that there's a certain amount of male ego stroking that a smart woman, knows to do. And I have not always been smart with the stroking of the ego, because I have my own ego. And I'm on that equal thing. But I think as a man, you have to give a man certain props that he needs to have. And let's say, for instance, maybe he doesn't make the money I make, but he fills in gaps other places. So my conversations, once I realized that it was an issue to say, babe, that's okay. Because you elevate me in this way. You helped me to accomplish this. He's taught me how to budget, and I appreciate that. Because he's extremely budget conscious. And I don't even think it's because of the income disparity. I think that's just, who he is. He can stretch a dollar like no other. And so I've learned a lot. So I think turning it around and being appreciative of what he does bring to the table has really kind of elevated and enlightened my sense of understanding. But like I said, it was a struggle and I'm just now starting to get it.
Well, here's the thing, and I truly believe that women who are, again, financially successful in their careers, like it doesn't bother them, obviously, that they're making more money than their man. And that's not where the issue comes. And
Right.
a lot of people are like, when you do come to the table with something else, like whatever that something else is, and that's, beneficial for you in the relationship. But that's not where the issue is. It's usually with the men. It's the men
Right.
that have an issue.
Right.
So I think that that's important that you said, you like a smart woman knows to an extent that you have to stroke a man's ego to get at the end of the day, to get what you want. And that takes wisdom and experience. And, because it's not always easy because,
No.
you work in fields, and a lot of us do, a lot of women where, we are in charge, we are bosses, and it's hard to turn that shit off sometimes.
Right. Well,
Bring it to relationships.
well, let me tell you, one of the big things is, he said to me before, and these are one of the comments that I realized, like, light bulb goes off, there's an issue. You're very arrogant. You look down on people. You bring that mentality at work home. And I didn't realize that, because I'm a keep it moving person. And on top of that, I'm not extremely emotional. So I'm very analytical. Things have to do with processes and not so much emotion. So I was ignoring the emotion over here with how he was feeling. Cause I'm like, what's wrong with you? I mean, what's yours is mine. What's mine is yours. I've never delineated money. I don't feel like I've made you feel that way. So before it was kind of like, that's your problem. I mean, like, that's not my problem, and so that was the attitude I took initially until we started having meaningful conversations about, hey, this is really bothering me. And then I was just like appalled because that was never my intention. It didn't even cross my mind, like, well, what are you focused on that for? And as a matter of fact, I think originally it went through stages. So one, I didn't see it. Then two, became irritated. Like, what? Are you serious? And then three, it was enlightenment. And then after that, it started to be a dialogue and communication. And now we're trying to make a change, or I am. I think it starts from within. You have to change, yourself and your thinking. I struggle.
Oh, so I'm going to ask you this, and we're going to do a little girlfriend talk here. So, and my history, that I was in a long-term relationship, a 10-year relationship. Mm-hmm. That was not the healthiest, but I pretty much paid for everything. Like, I paid the bills, I paid where we were staying, I paid the utilities, I paid food, like all of that. At the same time, I'm a single mother. I have a daughter, and I'm doing all of that, and I'm taking her to whatever activity she needs to go to. I'm cooking. Like, I was doing like everything. And I remember having conversations. I remember it coming to me saying, oh, well, you think that you're better because you went to the college, or you think you're better because, you're a lawyer, and, you're not better. And I'm like, whoa, like, where did that come from?
That's negative. Uplift me. No, and been there.
Yeah. Like, what, like, where did that come? Because I'm not thinking that, because I think that we all, have different talents, and we come with different things, and it's not always money. Although I said I will never pay everything again in a relationship. That wasn't going to be. But I heard that just dating, like in my 20s, all of that. Like thinking that the accusations, you think like you're telling me what I'm thinking, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I'm like, no, I respect you because you can do this, you can do that. These are things that I can't do. And so, more so the insecurity of them, of men a lot of times. And again, I think that goes back to what you said, and I think it's so important. I'm just going to reiterate, having to stroke a man's ego every once in a while. And that's hard for a woman, again, who is in control, who is the boss, to be a little bit more feminine in that area. And that's a skill that a lot of other women have. So when, a man leaves you and he goes and he's with someone who, is not as accomplished as you, is not as what, but they have a skill that we have not been doing. And that is, they know how to make a man feel like a man, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what they want. And it's really hard to say that and to admit that when you are like a power woman. You're like, I worked so hard to get to where am, and it didn't
be proud of me.
It came with knocking people down, because that's what you have to do to get to a certain place. And so it's really hard to say, just to kind of, to turn it down and say, baby, like, it's okay. I love you. You do this. I love when you do. Ask them a question.
Yeah.
Like, ask a question in an area that you are not knowledgeable in. At least act like you're not, you're not knowledgeable there.
No. My husband one time said to me, and I thought this was, I thought it was sexual, and it's not sexual, so you don't have to worry about me saying something crazy. But he said, "I need you to be my geisha," and I was like, "You're a geisha? Like, what are you talking? Like, you want me to do some freaky stuff? I mean, like, what are you saying?" And it was really more around, listen to me, leave that hat for being a boss behind, listen to what I'm saying, let me talk to you, take off that I'm in control, hat. And I'm thinking like, what do you mean? I'm not, I'm under you and whatever. But he was saying to me, as you know, with geishas, they would, in a certain culture, they would get their mistresses. And if you look through time, that's how, men did, is they had mistresses, they had their wife, and then they had their mistress. But when they're with their mistress, they don't have to, the mistress doesn't, they're not bossy, they're more submissive, they listen and all of that. And I'm not saying that we have to lose who we are, but I think we need to take, take something from that playbook and try to be maybe not so aggressive, because I'm told constantly that I bring it home. And I'm not aware of that at all. And I'm not aware of that at all. So,
yeah, that just kind of brings me to a conversation that my daughters that had with me like years ago when she was like a kid. And he would say, because you mentioned, just the way things were just over time. And, he was like, all men cheat. Like, and that's what it is. He was like, men have not changed. It's women who have changed, and it will continue.
My grandfather, you just made me think of something that my grandfather, he said, men will cheat, but take care of your home. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Grandpa, what do you mean by that? What do you mean men will cheat, but a real man takes care of his home? I said, a real man doesn't cheat, Grandpa. Did you cheat? And he's like, I'm not going to talk about that. And he lived to be like 90 some years old. In his later 90s, but that's what he said. And I was really appalled by that, because as a successful woman, I was like, I'm not going to be with anybody who, like, I knowingly know who cheated, but in that society, in that kind of old school mentality, a lot of things were more acceptable. And then we were not as further along as we are now. So it's very hard for me to reconcile with that. I don't want to get long-winded, but my mom had a career, but she stopped with her career to take care of children. And so my father was a doctor, and he made a lot more money than her. And now they are divorced, and she's very, she's a little bitter because she did not go after the money. She was educated, and she did all those things, but she put that down to be supportive to the husband. And now she's regretting what that brought. And it's just, so it has, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's got to be a balance. There's got to be a change in mindset. And it's not easy to break that cycle, because our men have the fathers that have that old school mentality. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I remember specifically after I graduated college, my father saying to me, well, how are you going to get a husband if you don't know how to cook? And that just like blew my mind. I was like, first of all, I know how to cook. I just don't, because at the time I was staying at their house. I was still in college or about to graduate. But at the same time, the other token, it was kind of like, I was really confused, because it was like, I was always told to go to college, pushed to go to college, went to college, and I saw something different for me. I saw a career. So I'm like, wow. So I'm supposed to, get educated. I'm supposed to get a good job. I'm supposed to have kids, and I'm supposed to, cook. I'm supposed to do all of this. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to be successful. It's a lot to be educated. And, to have to do all of that, to play on the same field as men, and then to still come home and still have those expectations of cleaning the house, cooking dinner, like taking care of all that, or at least taking care of it. I was seriously confused. I didn't get it. And I was like, well, I knew how to cook, but if I didn't, would this be a problem? Because it's not like, you taught me how to do. I just picked it up. I love to cook. So that's not an issue, but it was just like conceptually, I was just thrown.
And some of us aren't good at the feminine things.
Yeah, right. And it took me a long time to get there, and I still work on it sometimes. Oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So let's go back to the domestic part of it.
Yeah. Not good at that.
I don't know how it looks in your house, but in my house, I am still responsible and I'm still in charge of like making sure the house is kept up. My husband's not going to do it. He's a mess. He's like, I've got 2 little ones, the 2-year-old and 3-year-old, they're messes. And my daughter, she just moved out, but she's worse than all of them. And so I'm the only one that cares. But after a long day of working or what have you, it's like, I don't have a nanny right now. So it's really hard. I know I'm supposed to do laundry and I do it like every 2 weeks.
How do you manage that with kids?
You're empty nester now. Your son is gone, but I'm still responsible for that. Like I'm still responsible for the home. And so I know, back in the day when you were single, you used to have someone come clean your house. So how does that look in your relationship? How does the domestic part, like, since you don't do it, you're like, no, like, how does that look?
Well, that's a source of much contention in my household because I'm very messy. I call it clutter. Some people call it messy. At least I'm not nasty. That's different. Right. But my husband is like military clean. And so it's one of our major marriage woes and challenges. And so I would always say, hey, I might make this, but you elevate us in this way. And sometimes he gets to the point where you don't clean, I'm not going to clean. And then it just doesn't look good in here. But roles are kind of reversed in that way because he's extremely clean and tidy and I am not. But it's back to that boss head. Like, I don't have time for that. Like, and I would bring somebody in here to clean, but he kind of looks at me again, being frugal. Like, what are you doing? We can do this. And I'm thinking like, I don't want to be bothered. I don't have time to be bothered.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean,
to me, that's almost like, it's almost a slap in the face. I'm doing this, like I'm making money. I'm like contributing significantly to our lifestyle. And granted, it's the lifestyle that you want to live. And so, you do that. But at the end of the day, even if you weren't making that much money, but you were working all day to have to come home and have to clean. Again, like you don't have your son is older now, so he's gone. So you don't have that responsibility. But it to me is just, again, it's antiquated. Like, how are we expected to do all of this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So does your husband clean? Like he does the majority of the cleaning?
No, not anymore, because I think he thought I was taking advantage of him in terms of cleaning. But my mentality, I don't see like clutter. I don't see it. It's not that I don't want to do it, but I really struggle. I could be in a room literally for hours, moving things from one side to the next. And my brain, as analytical as it is, I just don't, it's just not a good thing for me. And so, I struggle.
I don't understand that though. So if he's like the neat freak, wants everything to be clean, like I don't understand why he doesn't do that. Like that's just, that seems a little, in my opinion. Again, you live the lifestyle that you live because that's the lifestyle that you want to live. But you both work, all day. But that's his thing. Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of see that as a little insulting a little bit that you're not going to, like that's your thing, but you're being a little resentful.
I think now what it is more so than anything is that he's taken on a position at work I felt that way too, and I sort of kind of still feel that way. But he's taken on a position where he comes home and he's extremely tired. So I find myself doing a little bit more than I normally would. And I try to make a conscious effort anyway. And that goes back to that mentality that I had before. And I didn't share this before, but before I got this consciousness, it was kind of like, man, I make money. Like, don't bother me with that, and that was not good. That was not good. So, yeah, kind of lost my train of thought too, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So why not since you both work, why not bring someone in to clean?
I think he would probably have a problem with that. And I'm trying not to have that mentality with, well, why not? I mean, I have to take this hat off. I'm making this money. Why can't we have the use of this? Because before I'd be like, I'm not even asking, because he used to say, you don't even discuss things with me. You just do. And that's not good, and, before I was like, okay, but like I said, I'm really maturing. I'm trying to, I feel like I'm maturing. But I've got a long way to go, but I think he would have a problem with that. But we're going to get there because it's just not what I'm good at. And if he's not doing it, I'm not doing it. That's something that I am going to broach, but I kind of pick the battles because there's some major battles that I want to win. So that one is kind of lower on my list.
I hear you.
Yeah. And the fact that I'm even talking about doing battles where I even have to go to someone to have a conversation about it is so not me. This whole marriage thing is just, that like I said, it's a whole nother topic because before I did what I want, when I want, it was my money. And that was the end of it. And that's, of course, anybody who has a successful marriage knows that you really aren't supposed to do it that way.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's whatever you come up with as a couple, but, definitely have those conversations. So again, for me, I can specifically remember when I had my oldest son, and he was some months old, but, at the time I was nursing and I was, bathing him every night, and I was, boiling bottles. And I was pumping as well. I was nursing and I was pumping. I was sterilizing bottles. Like I was doing all of that. And just one night I was just like, are you really just going to look at me like do this? Like, and I was working. Like I went back to work after 3 weeks. Like I had no business going back to work after 3.5 weeks after having a baby. But I was so used to hustling. I was so used to, being a single mother and, like contributing, and like that was my thing. And so I just kind of kept it moving. I shouldn't have, but I did. And it was amazing to me that my husband was just kind of there, just kind of like he let me do it all.
Yeah,
and then
like, what are you here for?
Like
we
when
made this baby together.
I got hormones going everywhere.
Right.
So I finally just, had to say something, and then, then we started like alternating. We started alternating baths. We started alternating bottles and all of that.
So was he not aware that he wasn't? Because it sounds like he was very receptive to it once you said it.
Once I said it, you definitely made changes, and he's really good about that. Like if there is an issue, like, even, after that time, like I hate seeing dishes in the sink. I hate doing dishes, but, I would always do them at night so I wouldn't see them in the morning. And, again, going through all the still nursing, being pregnant again, shortly after that, working, cooking, all of that, and cleaning up the kitchen, I was just like, look, I need your help. Like, I need you to help with the dishes or something. And then he started doing it. Like I think a lot of times we hold a lot of things in. It is just like a simple conversation on both ends. And I think we're just so apprehensive of what that conversation might be. We just don't have it, but it's building up inside of us.
Yeah.
And so the communication part is key. I hear my kids like screaming. They know really well. Like the door. He's banging the door. I can't believe my husband let this right here. This.
He's allowing that to happen. Like, where are you, dude?
Why? So definitely. It depends on the couple. I see a question that says, is there a middle ground? And that's, something that each individual couple needs to have. you need to know what your expectations are, what you desire, what you can do, what you can't do. Again, there's so many, women who are, tuning in again, who are making 6-7 figures, and coming home and cooking and cleaning is just not their thing. Like they're tired. You're tired and exhausted. And so you need to have those conversations, about what that looks like, beforehand.
Right.
Are men going to take care of the kids?
Right.
That's not going to happen in my household. It doesn't matter how much I complain.
Right.
That's just not going to change. Like, when I went to go to my daughter last night, first thing I thought was, what am I gonna do with the kids? I was like, gosh, like I'm not really gonna be able to comfort her or talk to her if I have both of the boys with me. And so I said to my husband, I was like, well, what if I take one and you keep the other one here?
Right.
He was like, it's kind of up to you. Do you want me to keep the boys? And I was like, can I do that? Like I can do that. And he was like, well, I am the father. And I was like, yes, you are. Yes. So before I left, my son was like, Mommy, I want something else to eat. I was like, Mr. Mom's right here. He just said that he's added. But when I coming back today, roles would never change for a certain reason. But before I came back home today, I gave him a call to see, how he was doing, how the kids were doing.
Right.
Like,
and he survived, right?
He turned down. Listen, no. So we're on the phone, and he's like, so let me tell you what happened. He's like, so the kids got up, I got them something to eat, and I came back in the room because my husband doesn't get up until like after 11, like every day. Like that's his schedule. And so like I'm always the one that gets up with the kids. And again, I don't have a nanny right now, so things are rough. But he's like, I got the kid. I went back to sleep, and he said, and I woke up, and Mr. Anderson Cooper was in front of me, and I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is not even funny. Like, I don't get what you're saying.
Right.
And he was like, well, he had white stuff. His whole head, his hair was all white. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did he get into some Ajax? Did he get like what is it? And so then my older son was like, Daddy, soap. And he looked and he was like, it was not soap. What it was some Noxzema that I just bought the other day, and I left it on the dresser, and they got into the Noxzema, so they put it everywhere. Like I walked in the house, smell of Noxzema. The time I walked in the house,
I thought they were tingling. The Noxzema back in the old school. If it's the same as it was then, tingle. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
I was like, this is why I don't leave them with you, because they get into stuff like he's knocked out, like he's asleep, which is scary. Like, because I don't know what they're getting into. They're 2 and 3. And so that's why, that's like this one of those things that's just not going to change. I'm like, I've always worried, like, what's going to happen with my kids? And that for me will never change. But, definitely is accepted for some other people, like for men, to be the caregivers. I don't know if that's something that I'm comfortable with. I'm, funny about, men being around kids, not their own kids, but, just in general. But, we do it. We do it.
Whole nother story. But my husband, before this husband, I wouldn't stay with my kid for like a year by himself. Like in terms of, not that I thought anything crazy was going on, but the fact that I felt like, I was every woman. I felt like he didn't have the same sort of due diligence as I did with regard to the kid. And I just, no.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we take it on. I'm going to get ready to close this out, but I do want to mention a little bit about Chesley first, because I'm not sure if you've heard about her or not, but she's, she was an attorney. She's Miss USA. Let's put that in the comments.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, and she, she committed suicide, and so things have been coming out. Just a beautiful girl, and just the clips that I've seen just seems like so full of life, just so full of energy, and it's just a reminder that we sometimes have two faces as well. Like we can be going through hell and no one know it.
Right.
I used to,
Not even your husband.
so-
Not even your husband, sometimes, because as women, we hold it in.
right. I used to show this picture of me when I was in my relationship, my 10-year relationship, and I was just like, was hurting. And I was like, really, I was depressed. But I got in front of the camera, but I still every day got up, put on my makeup, put on my heels, whatever cute outfit, and every once in a while take pictures. Not often, not as much during that time, but would take pictures every once in a while. And then I took a picture like at the end of 2020, I think it was, and still smiling, still looking the same. So I'd ask you, like, what do you see? What's the difference that you see in these pictures? You can't really tell, like maybe different curls or whatever in my hair. But the point was, even though I felt like I was dying on the inside, right? Just stressed and depressed. People don't know what you're going through. Like they don't know. They just think everything is good. And that's what I thought of when I, heard of Miss Kirst, and, she committed suicide. We don't know. Like she, thought that she should have accomplished more things by the time she was 30. She was so young. She talked about microaggressions, because she was an attorney as well. And, while she was practicing law, and that's one of the reasons why she quit. We do a lot, and she had a fear, again, of running out of time to accomplish things. And I know for me, when I was that age at 30, I never thought of taking my own life. I, definitely was in a depression at one point in my 30s. But my fear was being alone. It just it terrified me. And, for you, I remember when I met you, you had been married once, but, you got married shortly after we met. And you were married for, 10, 15 years?
Mm-hmm.
And then you were divorced for a period of time, not long. Like you were never without a man.
No, but I was alone. I was alone, even though I was in a relationship. So I can totally relate to what you're saying. And that's a really sad place to be.
Yeah. Well, even, before I got out, but there was definitely that fear of being alone. So I stayed in that relationship. And so to women who, and you all know, the spirit that I'm in with relationships and all that. If you have that fear of being alone, or that's something, or a relationship is something that you desire, especially if you're approaching 40, because that's, pretty much the demographic of women that I work with, 40 and up. Mm-hmm. That may be something that you really want to have as a good relationship, but you don't want to admit it. It's really hard to admit that you're scared of being alone. And so for those women, I, absolutely invite you to, looks like I'm cutting out. Can you see me? Okay.
Yeah, I can see that you keep freezing.
Okay. I invite you to just book an information session, because it just doesn't seem fair to have worked so hard in our lives and to feel like we're shorted in our relationships.
Right.
To, have to go through this hamster wheel or this cycle of meeting people or going online and, sifting through the trash and, all that. You can't even get to the conversation that we're having right now as far as the roles in a relationship, because you can't get to the relationship part.
Right. Sifting through the trash. Wow. I like that.
A lot of trash out there. Trust. There's a lot of good too, though. Yes. There's a lot of good men and there's a lot of good women. But my heart goes out to women, again, because we have worked so hard to get to certain places, to get in certain rooms, and to not be able to have that person that you can come home to and talk to comfort you, and all of those things. It's a value proposition. And again, I invite you just to book an information session, just to see what all services that we have. It's just a 15, 20-minute call. It doesn't cost you anything. But just to get you on a path to, getting in those good relationships. Like Lori said, relationships come with their own set of issues. But let's get to the relationship part. It is about 7:45 now. So, Lori, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm not sure at the end of the day, there aren't any clear cut answers as far as the gender roles in relationships. Because again, it just depends on the couple. It depends on what person is bringing what to the table. And everything, it just looks different. Yeah. So, I went from, again, being in a relationship where I paid for everything until I refused for that to happen and be the case again.
Right.
And, things are a lot more 50-50, a lot more equal. And we are partners. My husband and I are definitely partners, and we just, vibe off of one another. Where he is short, I come in. And It's important to be with men who can actually appreciate that. It's not all about money. There clearly comes to the table with something that we respect and we admire.
Right.
So, right. But it's just, good to have these conversations, just to, even think about, how we're presenting, how our men are taking things.
Yeah.
And communication. It looks like that you're like really getting comfortable with the value of communication and just having those conversations.
Yeah. And I wasn't before at all. I wasn't even open to it.
It's not easy. It's not easy because you deal with so much stuff during the day. It's going to be an argument. And I don't walk into arguments. I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to go there. So, but it is important every once in a while to have those conversations. But, when I have those conversations, it's like a whole list of things.
Oh, boy.
That's not the right way either.
Right.
Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. I'll be back next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I'll be talking about, because Valentine's Day is coming up, I'll be talking about how to have like a good Valentine's Day being single. Because I have been reading some things like, tips. Oh, I had to have a great Valentine's Day and you're single and all that. And I have seen some horrible tips. And I'm like, no. We're not, they may sound good in theory, but we're going to talk about some things that are really like good ideas so you can have a good Valentine's Day. Like one of the things that I read in an article was for Valentine's Day, oh, there's a good restaurant I'm sure you've been meaning to check out. Go to the restaurant. And I was like, seriously? You're going to tell a single woman to go to a restaurant on Valentine's Day? Like, that's just asinine. So some of just don't make sense to me. And so, I've got a list of those things that we'll talk about next Tuesday. We'll be here again at 7. Be sure to visit the website at myplatinumconnections.com and also Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. Again, Lori, thank you for coming and sharing some time with me. I know your husband is waiting for you. You have some cooking to do or something. You love to cook, though. You're like this whole.
But he's a good cook. Now, that's one thing he will go ahead and do, and I like that because he cooks good.
Oh, well, you like to cook too. Like you love seafood and all that. Yeah. You may make a mess while you're doing it, but
absolutely. Thank God for dishwashers.
Yeah. Thanks again. Everyone have a good evening, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.